So I'm really happy to close out day one, really excited about what we're going to talk about on day two. And we're going to close out day one with something that's near and dear to my heart, because I actually come from political data originally, and there's a fascinating sort of movement that they call sort of Gov 2.0 about how do we make government more responsive. Government is one of the sort of probably the biggest collector of data in the world, putting aside even the secret data collection, which we will not be discussing because it's secret. So I'm really happy to have Justin Antonipillai, who is the Undersecretary for Economic Affairs at the Department of Commerce. He was acting general counsel at the Department of Commerce. Before that, he was a partner at Arnold & Porter. So please welcome Justin Antonipillai. I don't know which side we should. There's so many chairs to choose from.
I'm in your hands, Dan.
All right, that dangerous hands. Maybe I'll put my beer down. Let's start with an easy one. So folks may be wondering why we have someone from the Department of Commerce here. You guys have taken to calling yourselves America's Data Agency. Why are you America's Data Agency, Justin?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for having me. I think it's a great conference and a great audience, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing. And I always like to say, especially when you come to a real group of innovators, data scientists, you're getting something done. My name's Justin Antonipillai. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. But I will tell you, so the reason I'm really here is we have really unbelievable data, and we got a secretary and we have a president who have really, really focused on the open data movement and have done it in a bunch of thoughtful ways. But it's a delicate, delicate thing we've built, honestly. And so part of what we're doing is talking about it, explaining the approaches we've taken, really trying to get folks to understand the scope of our open data movement, what kind of data might actually be available for you all to be using, and to drive usage of it. And the reason we want to drive usage of it is we have seen some really unbelievable opportunities coming from the open data movement. You know, obviously the big data movement's almost a different approach.
Yep.
But if you all aren't using it, if you don't know what we're doing, if you don't understand how we're approaching it, I worry about the long-term viability of that movement, and that's why I'm here.
Got it. Cool. Well, thanks for being here. I mean, so, in terms of what is under Commerce's umbrella, what kinds of data are we talking about that you guys oversee?
I will tell you, I didn't know very much about the Commerce Department. So I'm going to try and wake you guys up because you all got a fair amount of alcohol before I came up on the stage. So I'm going to name 3 bureaus, and you raise your hands. I'm not going to make you do it right now. I'm not going to call anybody out individually, okay? So I won't embarrass you. But I'm going to name 3 bureaus, and you raise your hand after I'm done with all 3, and I'll run through them. You tell me if they're in the Commerce Department, okay?
We're ready.
The National Weather Service, the Bureau of the Census, and the U.S. Trade Representative, okay? Those are the 3. So, National Weather Service, is it part of the Department of Commerce? Okay.
Smattering.
The Bureau of the Census.
Okay.
Oh, good.
More for that one,
there.
Yeah.
And the U.S. Trade Representative. Okay.
How many people know what the U.S. Trade Representative is or does?
So here, let me give you, so in Commerce, we actually have the National Weather Service. So all that weather data, that entire ecosystem that's built on weather data is probably based on data that we at the Commerce Department give away for free. And it's based on the idea that we want to save lives. We want to make our weather data available not only here but around the world. And we want an ecosystem that's built to deliver the right tools to the right people, and that you know better than we how to do that. So we bring down 20 to 23 terabytes of data a day from our weather satellites. And we can't obviously distribute that. We have real pipes problems, as they say. But we're looking at all kinds of ways that we can enable you to access that kind of data better. But between the Census Bureau with demographic data, We have the Patent and Trademark Office, which includes patent data, IP data. We actually have the International Trade Administration that's part of the Commerce Department. So of the three I mentioned, National Weather Service, Census Bureau are part of Commerce. The U.S. Trade Representative is actually a separate office in the government. The Small Business Administration, that's not part of Commerce, but the International Trade Administration is. So we have crazy import-export data. Have you ever seen Forrest Gump?
Yes, I believe I've seen that movie.
So you know the part where the guy gets up and says, all right, I got shrimp, and I got boiled shrimp, and I have fried shrimp and fricasseed shrimp. I know it sort of has that quality when I tell you the different kind of data sets, but we have an incredible amount of really valuable data, and our secretary and our president have really been focused on getting it out for use.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, so going back, 10 years, I feel like the big movement then was, how do we get from PDFs to something machine readable? And between that and data.gov, which maybe some folks have visited, I feel like there have been significant strides over the last decade or so. How much further do you see, are you done? Is machine readable the end, and then the private sector takes it from here? Or so how do you see bridging that next gap?
Okay, so that's a great question. And honestly, watching the last panel, Dan, Mike, and Tamaz talk about it from the private sector approach, it was helpful to me because I'll tell you some of the things we're doing and how we're approaching it big picture, but it's kind of based on we have to do some things with our data, and then we have to trust and work with private sector partners to actually go there. We have a lot to do. We have a lot to do, and to be honest, we're trying to approach this in a humble way because we realize we don't have all of the tools, all of the expertise, and so we really need your help. That's part of the reason that I come to speak at a thought leader conference like this. So how do we approach it? We have all these data sets. We started by building our own core team. So we hired a core team in what we call the Commerce Data Service, data scientists and software developers who are on staff helping us think through the problems. Data wrangling, how we think through the API approach, how we think through ones we're going to be releasing in bulk and otherwise. And to respond to a point that Dan made on the last panel, I will tell you personally, I came into the government 3 years ago. I'm a private sector guy. I was basically working with private equity firms. When I came in, if you said API in the policy world, nobody would have known what you were talking about, period. Now I can go into almost any meeting at any policy level and I say API and they know what I'm talking about. That's a revolution. That gives you an idea that at least we've been sensitized to some of the things you have to be thinking about. So we brought our core team on board. We also ran an academy to really teach data science because I have 45,000 employees at the Department of Commerce. You can't start with just 20 and really get across the scope of the problem. But listen to this, out of 45,000 employees, 3,500 people signed up for our first round of data science training. Again, that's a sign because let me tell you, I've run trainings before, you get like 5 people signing up. We had 3,500 people. We brought on a cohort, we did basic data science training, and then we started doing apprenticeships to drive solutions directly with the bureaus. But in addition to wrangling some of our data sets, building APIs where we think that's appropriate, we're doing a combination of building some of our own front-end-ish tools and then really going to the private sector to ask for help. So one of the approaches we've taken is we're seeding, for example, and by the way, we're one of the only, I think maybe the only agency that's doing this, but we're seeding libraries in R. How many people know what R is? Right, thank God, right? If I asked that and you guys weren't raising your hands, I would be a little bummed out.
You'd be in the wrong place.
I'd be a little depressed, yes. But look, we've got seed libraries in R. They're not going to be, transformational, but it's a good way to start. We really want to drive usage on these kinds of libraries so that you can access our APIs better. We're working directly with the European Commission on an open data, open source project. Again, it's going to be built in R to allow better access to economic data in the European Union and the United States together so that you all, when you're looking at our data sets, you who are expert users will have a place to start and then we're going to ask you to help us build on these tools to really make them meaningful. But that's some of the approaches we're doing, and we have others.
Yeah.